Hello, my dear children. Myself Sujata. Hope you have revised what you have learned in the previous class. In the last class, we learned the need of elections, what makes an election democratic, merits and demerits of electoral competition, and in this session, we will learn about our election system. Okay, can we say that Indian elections are democratic? To answer this question, let us take a look at how elections are held in India. Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha, that is the assembly elections, are held regularly after every 5 years. After 5 years, the term of all the elected representatives come to an end. That is, the Lok Sabha or Vidhan Sabha stands dissolved after 5 years. Elections are held in all constituencies at the same time, either on the same day or within a few days. This is called a general election. Sometimes election is held only for one constituency to fill the vacancy caused by death or resignation of a member. This is called a by-election. You read about the people of Haryana electing 90 MLAs. You may have wondered how they did that. Did every person in Haryana vote for all the 90 MLAs? You perhaps know that this is not the case. In our country, we follow an area based system of representation. The country is divided into different areas for purposes of elections. These areas are called electoral constituencies. The voters who live in an area elect one representative. For Lok Sabha elections, the country is divided into 543 constituencies. The representative elected from each constituency is called a member of parliament or an MP. One of the features of a democratic election is that every vote should have equal value. That is why our constitution requires that each constituency should have a roughly equal population living within it. Similarly, each state is divided into a specific number of assembly constituencies. In this case, the elected representative is called the member of Legislative Assembly or an MLA. Each parliamentary constituency has within it several assembly constituencies. The same principle applies for panchayat and municipal elections. Each village or town is divided into several wards that are like constituencies. Each ward elects one member of the village or the urban local body. Sometimes these constituencies are counted as seats, for each constituency represents one seat in the assembly. When we say that Lokdal won 60 seats in that candidates of Lokdal won in 60 assembly constituencies in the state, and thus Lokdal had 60 MLAs in the state assembly. Okay, now try to work out this activity. In this picture, you can see Gulbarga Lok Sabha constituency. It is a district in Karnataka. Study the constituencies shown and answer the following questions. Why is the boundary of the Gulbarga Lok Sabha constituency not the same as the district boundary of Gulbarga? Draw a similar map for your own Lok Sabha constituency. How many assembly constituencies are there in the Gulbarga Lok Sabha constituency? Is it the same in your own Lok Sabha constituency. Okay, let us try to understand what is reserved constituencies. Our constitution entitles every citizen to elect his or her representative and to be elected as a representative. The constitution makers, however, were worried that in an open electoral competition, certain weaker sections may not stand a good chance to get elected to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. They may not have the required resources, education, and contacts to contest and win elections against others. Those who are influential and resourceful may prevent them from winning elections. If that happens, our parliament and assemblies would be deprived of the voice of a significant section of our population. That would make our democracy less representative and less democratic. So, the makers of our constitution thought of a special system of reserved constituencies for the weaker sections. Some constituencies are reserved for people who belong to the scheduled caste or SC and scheduled tribes, that is ST. In a scheduled caste reserved constituency, only someone who belongs to the scheduled caste can stand for election. Similarly, only those belonging to the scheduled tribes can contest an election from a constituency reserved for scheduled tribes. Currently, in the Lok Sabha, 84 seats are reserved for the scheduled castes and 47 for the scheduled tribes as on 1st December 2012. This number is in proportion to their share in the total population. Thus, the reserved seats for SC and ST do not take away the legitimate share of any other social group. This system of reservation was extended later to other weaker sections at the district and local level. In many states, seats in rural, that is the panchayat, and urban municipalities and corporations, local bodies are now reserved for other backward classes or OBC as well. However, the proportion of seats reserved varies from state to state. Similarly, 1/3 of the seats are reserved in rural and urban local bodies for women candidates. Okay, now let us discuss on election process. First process of election is making of voters list. Once the constituencies are decided, the next step is to decide who can and who cannot vote. This decision cannot be left to anyone till the last day. In a democratic election, the list of those who are eligible to vote is prepared much before the election and given to everyone. This list is officially called the electoral roll and is commonly known as the voters list. Okay, what do you mean by the principle of universal adult franchise? It means that everyone should have one vote and each vote should have equal value. No one should be denied the right to vote without a good reason. Different citizens differ from one another in many ways. Some are rich, some are poor, some are highly educated, some are not so educated or not educated at all. Some are kind, others are not so kind. But all of them are human beings with their own needs and views. That is why all of them deserve to have an equal say in decisions that affect them. In our country, all the citizens aged 18 years and above can vote in an election. Every citizen has the right to vote, regardless of his or her caste, religion, or gender. Some criminals and persons with unsound mind can be denied the right to vote, but only in rare situations. Okay, next step is election voters' identity cards are issued. A complete revision of the list takes place every 5 years. This is done to ensure that it remains up to date. In the last few years, a new system of election photo identity card has been introduced. The government has tried to give this card to every person on the voters list. The voters are required to carry this card when they go out to vote so that no one can vote for someone else. But the card is not yet compulsory for voting. For voting, the voters can show many other proofs of identity like the ration card or the driving license. Okay, next step is the filling of nomination papers by respective candidates. Anyone who can be a voter can also become a candidate in elections. The only difference is that in order to be a candidate, the minimum age is 25 years, while it is only 18 years for being a voter. There are some other restrictions on criminals, etc., but these apply in a very extreme cases. Political parties nominate their candidate who get the party's symbol and support. Party's nomination is often called party ticket. Every person who wishes to contest an election has to fill a nomination form and give some money as security deposit. Recently, a new system of declaration has been introduced on direction from the Supreme Court. Every candidate has to make a legal declaration giving full details of serious criminal cases pending against the candidate, details of the assets and liabilities of the candidate, and his or her family and educational qualifications of the candidate. This information has to be made public. This provides an opportunity to the voters to make their decision on the basis of the information provided by the candidates. Next step is the election campaign is carried out. In our country, such campaigns take place for a 2-week period between the announcement of the final list of candidates and the date of polling. During this period, the candidates contact their voters, political leaders, address election meetings, and political parties mobilize their supporters. This is also the period when newspapers and television news are full of election related stories and debates. But election campaign is not limited to these 2 weeks only. Political parties start preparing for elections months before they actually take place. Okay, let us look into some of the successful slogans given by different political parties in various elections during their campaign. The Congress party led by Indira Gandhi gave the slogan of Garibi Hatao, meaning remove poverty, in the Lok Sabha elections of 1971. The party promised to reorient all the policies of the government to remove poverty from the country. Save Democracy was a slogan given by Janata Party in the next Lok Sabha election held in 1977 under the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayan. The party promised to undo the excesses committed during emergency and restore civil liberties. The left front used the slogan of "Land to the Tiller" in the West Bengal Assembly elections held in 1977. "Protect the self-respect of the Telugus" was the slogan used by N.T. Ramarao, the leader of the Telugu Desam party in Andhra Pradesh Assembly elections in 1983. So, in a democracy, it is best to leave political parties and candidates free to conduct their election campaigns the way they want to. But it is sometimes necessary to regulate campaigns to ensure that every political party and candidate gets a fair and equal chance to compete. According to our election law, no party or candidate can bribe or threaten voters, appeal to them in the name of caste or religion, use government resources for election campaign and spend more than rupees 25 lakh in a constituency for a Lok Sabha election or rupees 10 lakh in a constituency in an assembly election. If they do so, their election can be rejected by the court even after they have been declared elected. Okay, next is regarding the code of conduct that has to be followed during election. In addition to the laws, all the political parties in our country have agreed to a model code of conduct for election campaigns. According to this, no party or candidate can use any place of worship for. They can never use government vehicles, aircrafts, and officials for elections. And once elections are announced, ministers shall not lay foundation stones of any projects, take any big policy decisions, or make any promises of providing public facilities. Okay, after election campaign, next stage is polling and counting of votes. The final stage of an election is the day when the voters cast or poll their vote. That day is usually called the election day. Every person whose name is on the voters list can go to a nearby polling booth, situated usually in a local school or a government office. Once the voter goes inside the booth, the election officials identify her, put a mark on her finger, and allow her to cast a vote. An agent of each candidate is allowed to sit inside the polling booth and ensure that the voting takes place in a fair way. A ballot paper is a sheet of paper on which the names of the contesting candidates along with party names and symbols are listed. Nowadays, electronic voting machines or EVM are used to record votes. The machines shows the names of the candidates and the party symbols. Independent candidates too have their own symbols allotted by election officials. All that the voter has to do is to press the button against the name of the candidate she wants to give her vote. Once the polling is over, all the EVMs, that is the electronic voting machines, are sealed and taken to a secure place. A few days later, on a fixed date, all the EVMs from a constituency are opened and the votes secured by each candidate are counted. The agents of all candidates are present there to ensure that the counting is done properly. The candidate who secures the highest number of votes from a constituency is declared elected. So, in a general election, usually the counting of votes in all the constituencies takes place at the same time on the same day. Television channels, radio, and newspapers report this event. Within a few hours of counting, all the results are declared and it becomes clear as to who will form the next government. Okay, now try to work out this activity. As you know that the election is happening in your locality, what was the election campaign like in your constituency? Prepare a list of what the candidates and parties said. Find out, are the elections too expensive for our country? Refer page number 45 of your textbook. Now try to match the following features of our electoral system with the principles they reflect. Read, understand, and match the following features with the principles. Good. We'll meet you in the next session. Thank you.